What's up, everybody? How's everything going? Wednesday night, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, bringing you another Wednesday episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Very pumped up for this show today. It's been a very fun, busy week for yours truly behind the mic. Not on this podcast, but representing this podcast on other podcasts, which is the number one goal of any podcaster out there, is to get on as many shows as you possibly can, get your name out there, get your opinions out there to an audience that has never heard the soothing sounds of my voice before. In the words of Zach Sheldon, Morgan Freeman-esque, the white Morgan Freeman. This has been a hell of a week. It's been a really fun week. I just want to start off the top of the show by talking about some of the things that I've been up to as far as promoting the show, putting myself out there, and allowing myself to really work with others, and it's been phenomenal. I love working with other people. I love being on other shows, and as everybody knows, I've had a real good friendship with the Trainwreck Sports guys since October, since the first Buffalo Podathon, and they were able to bring me in and bring me on for an episode 131, Sal Capaccio, episode 130, and then your boy Ryan Thomas follows up Sal Capaccio the next week. And this week at Studio D with Trainwreck Sports, Brian Gianta will be in the house to talk all things Sabres, all things Western New York with the Trainwreck Sports guys. And I'm sure they'll put their own little spin on it and make their own little spin on it pretty fun as well. If I sound stuffy, it's allergy season, folks. I really wish it was not. But I have, this window where in between April and May, I'm good. Once the real humidity starts to kick in, that's when I feel the stuffiness. That's when I feel like I gotta drink as much water and put as much fluid in me as much as I can, because I feel so stuffed up. My eyes are itchy. It's just that time of year, allergy season. So if my voice sounds a little bit different today, probably doesn't over the mic, but I feel like my voice sounds different today. Maybe it's just me. I sincerely apologize, but you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. That's just the way it's going to be. So, yeah, I get to go on Trainwreck Sports with Degenerate Al, with Ty B, producer Burrs, and Jake Watkins, Wake Jakins on Twitter, better known as. And that was really good. Maniac couldn't make it, but I'll be on with Maniac at some point in the future. We'll be seeing each other, Maniac. We'll be seeing each other. So that was Monday. Today's Wednesday. And tomorrow I will be on another show, the Leftovers podcast, which is broadcast at the corporate studios of WGR Sports Radio 550, as I discuss a lot of sports headlines with Derek Kramer, with Frank Arcuri, and a bunch of other people. I honestly don't know who else will be on, so my apologies for that. But the Leftovers podcast with Derek and Frank, I'll be joining them and anyone else who's there. So maybe it's just us three. Not really sure. I know I'm going to be there noon tomorrow, and I'm very excited to talk with Derek Kramer. He's wanted me on his show. I'll have him on the podcast as well. Usually that's how things go. I have, guests on my show first, and then I go on theirs, or then I go on theirs first, and then they come on mine second. That's just the way it goes. It's called collab, and I love doing it. I love discussing sports with others. But today, I felt like there's a lot of things. As I said on the Trainwreck Sports Show, Wednesday is usually a day where I like to just riff on my own. I like to have a lot of sports topics that I can talk about stocked away in my brain, and I can just say, here's what I'm going to go off on. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here is what I want to really just dive into. And last week I dived into the whole Pete Rose situation. A lot of people enjoyed that episode. A lot of my dad's friends called me up and said, hey, man, that was a really good episode, due to the fact that was not my era. But I feel like I've done a lot of research on that case and in that era and all that stuff that took place back in 88, 89, that put Pete Rose on the ban list, which was really tough. And I talked about specifically how right now you have a lot of young superstars in the game of baseball, but there's nobody in the seats. How is that possible? Why is that? And there's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons is that some of the former greats in the sport have been shunned for whatever reason, whether it's Pete Rose or any of the old-time greats. They just don't want to get too close to those guys because they're worried that maybe a scandal will break out or something like that, because that was such a different time, such a different era. Steroids weren't prevalent, but superstardom led to a lot of different things back in that day and age. So it's like they just want to go year by year and go with the flow, and they really don't promote their athletes as well as they should. I talked about that in the Trainwreck Sports Show as well. It's not dying. I don't think it's dying. I think it's being pushed towards that based on the fact that they are shunning their old stars. They're not building this glorious, history that they have. They're not building onto it. They're kind of just leaving the past in the past and letting the future play itself out, and I don't think that's right. But what I do think will happen, and I hate to say it, but what I do think will happen is Pete Rose will get into the Hall of Fame when it's far too late, when he's reached his time to go up above. And you know what I mean by that. When Pete Rose dies is when he's going to get in. The guy's 78 years old, for Christ's sake. It blows my mind. They have him as this vocal piece on these major shows on Fox Sports. They have him on the desk during the World Series games, in the post game shows, pre and post game shows. They have him around the game of baseball. And you have these segments where it's Pete Rose, A-Rod, David Ortiz, Frank Thomas, and they're talking about stepping into the batter's box and establishing your presence in the batter's box. Pete Rose steps into the batter's box on the set, talks about how to hit the opposite way, and A-Rod said something to the tune of, "It's not that easy," and Pete Rose was like, "It actually is that easy." I just love his sense of humor, and I feel like he was probably the face of baseball in the 60s and 70s, and maybe even into the 80s too. And between his playing career, his managerial career, over 30 years in the game. And we're just going to turn our backs on that. The fans, I think if you put out a Twitter poll, which I plan on it tomorrow, if you put out a Twitter poll, you would have Pete Rose. People want to see him in the Hall of Fame. They want to see him get his day. Most people would. I'd say 8 out of 10. You have those two, old-time morons in the survey as well that would say, no, he disgraced the game, and he did this, and he did that. And no. But it's like, okay, I guess. Not really. This is a disgrace, and it's a joke. But that's my 2 cents on that. I did put on a Twitter poll in regards to our Buffalo Bills. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? Do you think? I think they'll make the playoffs. Do you think they'll make the playoffs? 2019, I think they'll make it. And as far as how that poll went, I can pull that up for us. as far as how that poll went, I pinned it to the top of my profile, and holy bejesus. At Ryan Thomas Take, with 968 followers, people, let's hop on this train. Join the team. And in the words of the Trainwreck Sports guys, this train never stops, but the takeover is happening. The takeover is for real. This is not just a bunch of hubbub. I didn't just say I was going to take over just for the hell of it. I'm not here to take part. I am here to take over. In the famous words of the subject matter in the show later, Conor McGregor said this once. And I think it's the motto of my life. I've never been here to take part. I've always done things big. I've always gone big or go home. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but joined a sport with no experience at all. Never stepped foot on a wrestling mat. And I was beating kids that I had no business beating. But that's just me for you. So there's that. And now, as we get into my 27th year, started this podcast 3 years ago, look at the people that I've had on and look at what it's turned into. It's been phenomenal. I can't even believe it myself. Sometimes I pinch myself. Sometimes. But anywho, my tweet said, will the hashtag Bills make the playoffs in 2019? Be honest, in the poll, hashtag Bills Mafia. Really think about it before you vote. I want some honest takes in the comments section as well. Let's discuss. 623 votes were tallied. 623 off of 3 retweets, 3 likes. Yes, 64% of Bills Mafia believes that the Buffalo Bills will make the playoffs. 36% says no. If you want to follow me for more awesome Twitter polls, at Ryan Thomas Take, type it in the search bar. You'll see the beautiful Thomas Take logo. Shout out to at Buffa Wallpapers, Jordan Santaluca, for that sweet, piping hot logo that has helped build the show even more. It's not just me that's done this. I've had a lot of outside contributors. Of course, people have been willing to have me on their show. Thank you to them as well. They're just as much part of the success as I am, if not more. So let's get to the subject matter of the show. I just wanted to open up with that because I felt like it was necessary. I felt like it was needed. I got half an hour left on the air and 32 minutes to be exact. Let's dive into what you came here for. Chad Kelly, the former quarterback out of Ole Miss, Jim Kelly's nephew, Dan Kelly's son, a quarterback that has always had the talent. And people say, Ryan, you really think he's that good? Yeah, I don't think. I know, he was that good. He did do some really good things in college. He was projected to be a first-round pick had he not had the wrist injury, but most importantly, had he not had the character issues. Don't forget, remember this, Chad Kelly was looked at as one of Clemson's biggest gets on the recruiting list, and Chad Kelly was thrown off that team. Thrown completely off that team for arguing, I don't remember if it was with Dabo Swinney or if it was an offensive coach, but they said, you're gone, dude. We are the cream of the crop in college football. We are about to ascend to be the best program outside of Alabama in college football. And they are now, without a doubt, national champs. Reigning national champs. 2 of the last 3 years, I believe. 2 out of the last 4, something like that. Prior to all that, they had Chad Kelly waiting in the wings. They had Deshaun Watson as the backup. And they said to Chad Kelly, you're gone. We don't need this. We don't need this shitstorm, pardon my language. And he had to transfer to JUCO, to junior college, and play 2 years at some small school, and then he gets back into the NCAA game with Ole Miss, and he did very well. But he did have a wrist injury, and the wrist injury was very bad. Wrist injury in any case is very bad, but when it's a quarterback and he has a wrist injury, that's even worse, especially when it's his throwing wrist. And he takes the hit to his stock and has the character issues, runs into trouble, goes to his brother's football game at St. Joe's and runs out on the field when his brother's in a fight with another player and tries to fight another kid. I mean, it's a classic case of a guy that cannot control his emotions, and we've seen it before with some of these big-time quarterbacks. They just cannot handle any pressure whatsoever. The first guy that comes to my mind is Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf was a good quarterback. Ryan Leaf had all the intangibles of being a good quarterback. He could throw, he could move, he was accurate. He just could not handle the mental rigors of being a quarterback, period. Whether it was in the college level or in the pro level, really more so in the pro level because he had a great college career, but really more so in the pro level. And I think I can say the same thing for Chad Kelly. Ryan Leaf now is on this tour of redemption, and I love his story. I really do. But I'd like to see less stories like that where, yeah, it's great that a guy 25 years from those moments, those dark moments in his life, could recover and get back to being a solid member of society. And I think that's what Ryan Leaf is now. There's obviously time to, the book is not done on Ryan Leaf yet. There's still plenty of story there. And I think you can say the same thing for Chad Kelly. There's still a lot of time. He's still very young. There's still time to write a better story. And the biggest question I'll get is, Ryan, do you think Chad Kelly deserves a second chance? What kind of question is that? Who am I to say who deserves a second chance and who doesn't? First off, I'm not an NFL GM. I'm not an NFL coach. I'm not an NFL owner. But if I was, and I knew that there was a quarterback out there that, had some dark moments in his time, had some dark days, did some things that were a little messed up, but was willing to say and do all the right things to get a second shot, he has the talent. And that's why he's given this second shot. He's saying and doing all the right things right now. He's prepared for a return to the league, and he was given that opportunity. And good for him. To say that he deserves that opportunity, that's another story. Deserve. What does deserve really mean in the National Football League? I don't even think that's a word that should be associated with anything in the National Football League. Whether we're talking about players that have had these rocky roads or not, deserve, the word deserve in the National Football League, that should not even be thrown out there. You have to earn it. What happened to that? What happened to earning your spot? Did Chad Kelly earn a spot? Apparently he did, because the team was willing to give him a shot. That's my opinion. Chad Kelly would not have earned a shot without earning it. Not about deserve. Deserve is such a lazy word. Deserve. I deserve this. I deserve that. Why? Because you say so? No, you got to show me. You got to show actions speak louder than words like deserve. And Chad Kelly, through his actions, through his play, through the staff evaluating whether or not Chad Kelly could play at a high level, showed that he, I guess, deserved the opportunity, or earned the opportunity, as I like to say. Deserve and earned. I would say deserve is a word that's thrown around way too much these days. I can't stand that. I really don't like that. Do I deserve to be the host of a show on ESPN because I'm a good guy? Like people say, well, I deserve that because I'm a good person. No, you don't. You have to earn it. You can't just say what you deserve. You have to earn it. You have to put the time. You have to put the dedication. You have to show the work ethic and, yes, the talent in order to get to where you want to go. And Chad Kelly did that. Now, I would be a fool to not bring up that the NFL is just as much a who-do-you-know league than any league in sports. It's all about who you know. If you don't know anyone that is willing to give you that shot based on other things than what we've just talked about, you're pretty much SOL. You're pretty much shit out of luck. And luckily, Chad Kelly does have this name behind him. The Kelly name. Because if he didn't, and he was just an average guy with no bloodline in the National Football League Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, I don't think he would have gotten this shot. I hate to say that, but I don't. And I will throw out the Colin Kaepernick scenario. Colin Kaepernick has no bloodline in the National Football League, a former quarterback uncle that, that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, originated an offensive concept, was a face of that offense, face of a franchise, arguably the greatest player in a franchise's history. He didn't have any of that. And I'm not going to make this a race thing because I think that can get a little weird, and I don't want to do that, but there's other guys that have deserved second chances that haven't gotten them. And there are other reasons for every single thing. I mean, every scenario, every situation is different from the next, but to say that Colin Kaepernick, based on his talent level, doesn't deserve a shot, and Chad Kelly does, is a little silly. Because Colin Kaepernick has done far more in his NFL career than Chad Kelly could even dream of at this point. And Chad gets another shot, but Colin Kaepernick does not. That's tough. That's a tough sell. But Colin doesn't have anyone that could get him in based on a positive relationship. The NFL turned their heads to Colin Kaepernick completely. No one wants to touch him with a 10-foot pole because of the publicity, positive or negative, that would come with it. They just don't want to do it. And really, it's the owners that don't want to do it in particular. So there's that. So you have an owner in Jim Irsay who's notoriously known for having his own checkered past, I guess we could say. You have a GM that really likes to be intertwined with the head coach, and that head coach just so happens to be Jim Kelly's longtime best buddy, longtime backup quarterback, probably the greatest backup quarterback of all time. I think that we could actually throw out as far as what we did learn about those Buffalo Bills back in the day, is that they had a quarterback that probably could have started on any other team in that era, but didn't, due to the fact that he was Jim Kelly's backup, and that was Frank Reich. The guy that led the greatest comeback in college history and in pro football history. With Maryland and with the Buffalo Bills versus the Houston Oilers back in 1993, I believe that was, in the wild card round. 35-3 down, 35-3 at Rich Stadium, once known as Rich Stadium, once known as Ralph Wilson Stadium, now known as New Era Field. Frank Reich leads that 35-3 comeback. The Bills win 41-38, and they move on in the next round. They ultimately lose the Super Bowl, I believe, to Dallas in their worst Super Bowl loss ever, 52-17. But anyway, Frank Reich got a call from his boy. That's how this went down. Frank Reich got a call from Jim Kelly, and Jim said, Chad is practicing with teams. He's practicing with NFL players throughout this offseason. He knows a lot of players. He gets along with a lot of players. And he's a different guy. Please give him a shot. And Frank said, we'll give him a look. We already talked about it. We're going to give him a look. We're going to see what he can do. And we'll get back to you. Hopefully you're right, because we could use a backup quarterback to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is one of the most injury-prone quarterbacks out there because that offensive line was so bad for so long in Indy, really for the first 4 or 5 years of Luck's career. Now, not so much. He was one of the least hit quarterbacks in the NFL last year. But players get hurt. You need that backup quarterback. Backup quarterback nowadays is just as important as a QB1. So he tests. He goes to the mini camps. They evaluate him. The balls come out of his hand very well, as it always has. The accuracy is there, as it always has been. And they decide to give him an opportunity. And people, there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to get your armchair GMs. You're going to get your Monday morning quarterback morons. They're going to say, well, he only got a shot because of who he knew. Of course he did. So what? So what? It is what it is. As I like to say, I've coined the phrase on this show multiple times, it's the reality of the situation that Chad Kelly is a talented quarterback. He just so happens to be a bit of a moron off the field. Okay? That's fair to say. He's made his fair share of mistakes, but that doesn't mean his career should be over, does it? We've had a lot of players in this day and age that have made mistakes. Does that mean their career should be over? For some, yes, it does. For others, no, it does not. But each situation is different. Between Kareem Hunt, Ray Rice, Chad Kelly, Tyreek Hill, probably very, very shortly, each situation is different. Chad Kelly, drunk and disorderly, barges into a home that he thought he was supposed to be in and it wasn't. Is that bad? You're damn right that's bad. You're damn right that's bad. But just like in any walk of life, if you want to get an opportunity, sometimes it is about who you know. And he still had to earn it. This wasn't something that was just handed to him. He had to go out. He had to perform. He could have let the pressure of the moment get to him in his preparation for it. He could have let the pressure get to him in the moments of, hey, Chad, throw the ball 15-yard slant route right on the numbers. He could have thrown it at the receiver's feet. He could have thrown it over their head, and he didn't. So now let's see what happens. Now let's see with this chance, with this opportunity, what Chad Kelly does. If he squanders this off the field, you bet your ass this is his last opportunity in the National Football League. You only get so many. Ask Tim Tebow. Ask Johnny Manziel. You only get so many opportunities. Ask Colin Kaepernick. You only get so many opportunities. And for whatever reason, the league can turn their eye to you with the snap of their fingers. And that's that. So I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well. I hope he makes this comeback, gets another shot, and makes the most of it, creates a positive opportunity for himself. And there'll be people out there that are, way underqualified to say, well, I hope he fails. And you don't have to be qualified to say that. Either way, you're a jerk, whether you're qualified to say that or you're not. But what I mean is people that are qualified think that he won't succeed. And then there's people that aren't qualified that say they hope he doesn't succeed. Those people are just a waste of time, really. I hope he does succeed. I wish the guy the best. I want him to do well. I think he can do well. But we'll see. Next up on the show, Conor McGregor had some very interesting statements to say in regards to his fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov, in regards to his fight with Floyd Mayweather. And as far as the fight with Floyd Mayweather, he said that in the rematch, he believes he would win a boxing rematch. That's like saying, I can't even find an analogy to that. But talk about crying over spilled milk. There's no chance that we will see that fight again. I didn't think it would happen the first time. Maybe there is you know what? I'll scratch that. I think there is a chance that fight could happen again. But there's no chance the sport of boxing will allow it. And you all know what I mean by that. Find some way to create a ripple rule to underlyingly undermine the fight, and you have the ref saying, oh, you can't do this, Conor, you can't do that. It'll be pretty much Floyd's fight. It's Floyd's ring. It's Floyd's night. Anytime he fights anyone in this day and age, especially a kickboxer in Japan. What a goddamn joke that was. I still can't believe that even happened. But anyway, he beats a Japanese kickboxer, and the kid who's like 19 years old starts crying in the ring. It was so fake and so embarrassing, and just such a joke. Really, I wish Floyd would just go away. And I almost wish Conor would just stop talking about him, because anytime Conor uses his platform to talk about Floyd Mayweather, it makes Floyd Mayweather relevant again. If no one talks about Floyd Mayweather anymore, he'll fade away just like every boxer has. Just like Tyson, just like Holyfield, just like Lennox Lewis, just like De La Hoya, all of them. They all eventually fade away when the public stops bringing them up, or anyone of fame stops bringing them up. Can Floyd still fight? Yeah, but Floyd Mayweather from 2015 versus Conor McGregor would not have allowed that fight to last 10 rounds. But he did, because he was Floyd in 2017, coming off a 2-year layoff, with no wheels on the tires, no wheels on the legs, no speed. Really just had to wait out the pressure from Conor. And to his credit, he did, and won the fight in the 10th round. But as far as a second fight, it just shows where Conor's head's at. He's still thinking about a boxing super fight that shouldn't have even happened, but did, and it was fun, and it was cute, and it was iconic, and that fight is such an anomaly that I would like to just leave it alone and respect it for what it was and appreciate it for what it was, rather than revisit it. At the same time, I say that, and then at the same time, if I heard that the fight was happening again tomorrow, I'd be like, wow, that's great. That's going to be a great fight. I cannot wait for that fight. But I just can't put myself in that spot right now. Can't do it. But he also said some things about Khabib Nurmagomedov, which I found to be more interesting because at the end of the day, whether Conor wants to admit it or not, he's more of an MMA fighter than a boxer. Granted, the sport of boxing pays their fighters so much better than the MMA fighters. Even though Conor's the 1%, he's made multi-million-dollar paydays in MMA. He's made multi-million-dollar payments in boxing. So, $100 million in boxing compared to 10, 15 for an MMA fight. When you look at how much more grueling the training camps are for MMA than they are for boxing. Not that boxing isn't grueling in any way, it is, but training every discipline for a fight camp from MMA, there's a lot of things that could go wrong in terms of being injured in comparison to boxing. And he's talking about Khabib and how that second fight needs to happen, that the war isn't over, that he broke his foot prior to the first Khabib fight. And I think that's all excuses, and that's really disturbing that we're almost a year removed from that fight, and Conor is still talking about it like it happened yesterday. In a way, it's a good thing because it shows that the guy has thought about it ever since, shows that he does have some hunger and determination to get it right again the second time, but he does not deserve that immediate rematch. He talks about what he deserves. I hate that word. To go back to it again, I deserve an immediate rematch. Why? Why? And people do not say, don't say it. Don't say to me, well, he's the top draw. That does not matter. That does not matter. After watching that Khabib-Conor fight, what matters is who is the next guy that could beat Khabib, because it sure as hell is not Conor after watching that first fight. It's not. I can't convince myself that an immediate rematch is warranted because the first fight was not a close fight. It was a mauling. It was an embarrassing performance from Conor McGregor. His worst fight of his career by a country mile. And he's had some rough nights. Nate Diaz was a rough night. The first fight, Nate Diaz 2 was a rough night. Although he won that fight, it was close. It was a split decision. Majority decision, I believe. So he's had some rough nights, but that Khabib fight was not even close. So to say I deserve, well, you're the biggest name in the game. We know that. But you fight Khabib, you lost to him very badly. You fight him again and lose to him very badly. Then your career's done. Then you're shot. Your career's over. You lose to the same guy twice in a row, your career's shot. Step aside and let someone else take the mantle for a moment in time. Rather than hogging the spotlight, even more than you already have, let someone else get a crack at Khabib. Pray that person wins. Then you can fight that guy, and Khabib is not even in the title picture anymore. Does Conor really want to beat Khabib that badly? Yes, he does. But styles make fights. Al Iaquinta went 25 minutes with Khabib Nurmagomedov. Conor McGregor did not. Case closed. Each fight is different. Each fight allows other fighters to use their abilities in other ways. Al Iaquinta was not going away. Al Iaquinta was not going to quit. Al Iaquinta was going to do whatever it took to get back to his feet. And that's what helped that fight last the 25 minutes that it did. Al Iaquinta took jabs after jabs after jabs to the face. And Khabib was able to coast. Where in the Khabib-Conor fight, Khabib was able to do any single thing that he wanted to do. Could you imagine being in a fight with a former two-division champ, and you're the champ of a division, he's the challenger, and every thought that surpasses in your mind of what you're going to do to that guy works? every thought. There wasn't one moment in the fight where Conor was truly winning. The only moment of the fight where Conor looked remotely decent was in the third round, and it was mainly due to the fact that Khabib was backpedaling and was regaining his energy from that mauling of a second round. Really, Conor should have been finished in that round. Ref could have very well stopped it, didn't, and allowed that fight to continue. And I'm glad he didn't stop it then, because there was more room for that fight to commence. But Conor does not deserve an immediate rematch. You got to earn it. You got to fight somebody else. You should have fought Cerrone. Now Cerrone's fighting Tony Ferguson in a big fight. But there's still a guy out there. There's still a guy waiting for an opponent. There's still a guy that is calling your name. Answer the call. Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor. Why not? I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Take care, everybody.